Capitalism versus socialism. Which is better? So this is the Financial Historian on YouTube. Absolutely go and subscribe to him. He posted this 6 days ago. Okay, so this is relatively new. And I wanted to cover it because I really wanted to highlight the differences between capitalism and socialism in today's stream, in this week's little thing that we have going on here. Me talking to ones of people, because for whatever reason there's even one person out in the world that wants to listen to my bullshit online. So this is capitalism versus socialism, what actually worked and what didn't, right? So let's find out. Boom.
Modern history. A fight. It's one of the longest, loudest arguments in modern history. A fight that outlived revolutions, toppled empires, bankrupted superpowers, and split the world in half. For over a century, capitalism and socialism weren't just economic theories. They were battle lines. And behind every patriotic speech, every worker uprising, every recession, and every proxy war, this debate shaped the world we live in. But here's the part. No ideology influencer ever mentions. Neither system worked the way the textbooks promised. Not once. Not anywhere. And when the pressure hit, war, famine, inflation, collapse, the truth showed itself with brutal clarity. Welcome to the Financial Historian, where money, power, and history collide.
Yeah.
And nothing is ever as simple as it looks. The story begins long before anyone uttered the words capitalism or socialism. For most of human history, the economy wasn't really an economy at all. It was survival. Monarchs claimed divine.
I wonder if these are just paintings he found and threw together, or if he had somebody paint all this. I like him. I don't know. This is definitely an interesting kind of video. It's different than what I normally watch and way different than what I make, right? Because I just fucking look at shit and talk to a screen. But when people put this much work, I really enjoy it. Especially if he had all these paintings made special for this.
Divine right. Landlords owned almost everything. Peasants produced just enough to avoid starving.
Yep.
Progress moved slower than glaciers. For thousands of years, human life was a zero-sum game. If someone rose, someone else fell. Wealth came from land, labor, and war. Productivity barely grew. And the idea that ordinary people might grow rich through trade or innovation would have sounded like madness. Then the
Not in Babylon!
Industrial Revolution blew the world open.
There's a book that I've read called The Richest Man in Babylon. I really do think that you guys should read it. It explains a whole awful lot. It really, really does. And I'll be honest with you, I have seen the working out of the first law of gold for myself firsthand. I have seen that, okay? Just saying, Arcad's first law of gold, that shit's real.
Open. Britain in the late 1700s was a pressure cooker of coal, iron, capital, and restless ambition. Machines replaced muscle, factories replaced workshops, and a new kind of power emerged, the power of private capital. For the first time, individuals could invest, risk, and own at a scale previously reserved for kings. Productivity exploded, wages rose for some, misery deepened for others, and inequality widened faster than any society had ever experienced. Pollution choked cities. Children worked 12-hour shifts. Slums bred disease. But no matter how ugly it was, one fact was undeniable. Capitalism produced more goods, more wealth, more speed than the world had ever seen. This was the moment when socialism was born, not as a utopian dream, but as a desperate reaction to industrial capitalism's brutality. By the mid-1800s, writers like Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels looked at the smokestacks, the worker riots, the factory floors stained with sweat and blood, and concluded that the system itself was the crime. They saw capitalist wealth as stolen labor, extraction disguised as opportunity. They argued that if workers collectively owned the factories...
Right, but we know how money works, right? And it's not like there's a set amount of bills out there circulating, and if I have one bill, it takes another bill away from somebody else. That's not how that works. It's never been how it works, and it's insane to me to think that. It's crazy.
If the profits were shared, if production served human need rather than private gain...
Me getting rich, which is not happening, but me getting rich doesn't mean someone else is getting poor. That's not how that works. And in fact, if that someone else was doing the same things I am, they would probably be getting rich too.
Society would finally become fair. No more exploitation, no more cycles of boom and bust, just rational planning and equal dignity. It sounded clean, elegant, moral. And for millions of people living beneath the gears of early capitalism, It sounded like justice. But theory is one thing. Real life is another.
No, like I said, man, socialism works in theory and nowhere else. Only in theory. It looks great on paper, but the moment you put it into practice, everything changes.
The first time the world seriously attempted socialism on a national scale, it wasn't in a classroom. It was in the ashes of an empire. After the 1917 Russian Revolution, Lenin inherited a country that was starving, illiterate, and
This is the rise of communist Russia, right?
backward. The Tsar was dead. The old elite fled or were executed.
Although the Tsar did not survive, one princess may be still alive. The Princess Anastasia who will help us fly.
And suddenly, a vast territory with 150
You and I, friend, will go down in history.
million people needed a new operating system. So the Soviets built one. State ownership of land, factories, banks, and resources. Prices were set by bureaucrats. Production targets replaced.
Man, I don't like a whole lot about Russia. I love the memes about Putin, right, where he's ex-KGB and rides like shirtless with machine guns on the back of a bear or something like that. I love that. That's awesome. I also really like Anastasia, which is one of my favorite Disney movies that I watched growing up. Just one of them, not my favorite, but like one of them. Anastasia is definitely up there in like the top 3 for me. But I don't really like anything about Russia, especially the USSR. And I'm fairly certain that, and this was something I also heard from Jordan Peterson, was that, and I'm pretty sure it was in communist Russia under maybe Stalin. The housewives who were working on the farms, whenever the plows picked up and grabbed all of the harvest and left, she would go out and pick all of the little grains of rice that were left over that were just like in the dirt or something, wash them, and then use that to feed their kids. Well, if she was caught doing that, she would be put to death because you were supposed to send all of that resource to the capital for distribution, right? So just for clarity for you guys, like that's how it works. The government has to eventually... under a socialist society, nobody is incentivized to do anything at all. And so eventually, no one will do anything. And so the government will have to completely take over and force people to do things. And that's when it switches from socialism to communism. And once it reaches the communist thing, the government not only has to force you to do it, but they have to enforce those laws. Meaning if you break them, or say, I don't want to be a coal miner, I want to go and be a doctor, they're going to shoot you because you're not doing your part for the betterment of the community, right? That's how that works.
Profit motives.
In practice, that's how that works.
Private business was wiped out. In theory, it should have created perfect equality and efficiency. In practice, it created chaos.
Yep.
Without market prices, planners didn't know what people wanted or how much to produce.
Dude, and critics will just say, yeah, but they didn't do it right. Or, yeah, but America was intervening and forced it to collapse, right? They'd just been left alone. They'd have been fine.
Competition, factories didn't innovate.
That's actually an argument that I'm seeing on circulating online right now, is that all of these socialist societies and communist societies that failed throughout history, they only failed because the U.S. intervened and made them fail, right? And they post a picture of some city lights in China and go, China's a socialist, or China's a communist society, and they're working perfectly, better than the United States. China's society is going to fucking collapse in 30 years.
Without personal reward, workers had no reason to exceed the minimum. Shortages became normal.
Especially now that Trump's tariffs are forcing companies to come back to the United States. The companies are leaving China. That's what's happening.
Lines became culture, and agriculture, the backbone of the Russian economy, collapsed into famine. Lenin eventually retreated, allowing limited private trade just to keep the country alive. Yet something strange happened. Despite its failures, socialism remained seductive, because capitalism wasn't exactly looking good either. By the early 20th century, capitalism had delivered immense growth, but also wild instability. Speculation ran rampant.
Look, capitalism is only bad for the people who are leeches on society. If you actually want to produce something and contribute to society, then capitalism works great for you. It's the people that want to leech off everybody else and do nothing from the get-go. You know, the thing that everyone in socialism is going to end up doing, the people that want to do that from the beginning are not rewarded for that in capitalism, and so they have a lower quality of life because they don't want to provide for themselves. In a capitalist society, the only requirement is that you want to provide for yourself. That's it. That's the only fucking requirement for you to succeed in capitalism.
And trusts dominated industries. The wealthy lived like modern royalty while millions scraped by. The system was efficient at creating wealth, but terrible at distributing it. This imbalance detonated in 1929 when the U.S. stock market imploded and capitalism suffered its most catastrophic failure. The Great Depression wasn't a recession, it was a global economic heart attack. Banks collapsed. Unemployment hit 25%. Entire countries saw their financial systems wiped out. For millions of observers, capitalism looked not just flawed, but fatal. So, by the 1930s, the world faced an uncomfortable truth. Neither system worked as advertised. Socialism promised equality, but delivered scarcity. Capitalism promised prosperity, but delivered collapse. And then came a moment that changed everything: World War II. The war forced every major economy to test its system under maximum pressure. The Soviet Union, despite its inefficiencies, mobilized its entire population with terrifying speed and discipline. State control allowed it to...
Ding ding, war with the United States, round 2. These didn't learn the first time. Had to slap them up again.
Redirect all resources toward survival. Meanwhile, capitalist nations like the United States transformed into industrial supermachines, proving just how powerful private innovation could be when backed by national coordination. When the war ended, the scoreboard wasn't ideological anymore. It was GDP, infrastructure, growth, and living standards. And from 1945 to 1991, the world became a laboratory. On one side, the Soviet bloc, central planning, state control, suppressed markets. On the other, the United States and its allies, regulated capitalism, private enterprise, but with safety nets born from Depression-era lessons. This was the real experiment, not the manifestos, not the speeches, but millions of people living the consequences. The results were as dramatic as they were painful. In the Soviet Union, the early decades brought rapid industrialization. Illiteracy fell, housing expanded, military power soared. But beneath the surface, the system was cracking. Without price signals, the economy drifted into absurd inefficiency.
These are crazy paintings. This is awesome.
Quotas by producing unusable goods.
I don't know,
Farms
man.
delivered rotten
cool.
harvests, and innovation stagnated. By the 1970s, the USSR was decades behind in consumer technology. A country that could build rockets couldn't produce decent refrigerators. Capitalism, meanwhile, adapted. After the Great Depression, governments introduced regulation, deposit insurance, antitrust laws, social security, public healthcare systems, and unemployment benefits. Capitalism didn't become fair, but it became survivable. It learned from its mistakes, and that adaptability became its ultimate weapon. By the 1980s, the gap was undeniable. Western living standards surged while the Soviet economy stalled. The Cold War wasn't won by ideology, it was won by performance.
Oh, that's the breaking of the wall in Germany right there. That's fucking... Dude, these paintings are so cool. Oh, man. There's a art museum down down the street from my house, and they've got like Monets and Picassos and stuff in there. And I mean, it's free to the public, and it's nice. I don't know, for whatever reason, I don't appreciate art, but I appreciate the work that it goes into it, right? Because I could never do something like this. So the fact that somebody can look at a blank canvas and make something like this, I find fascinating. But it's not like a super deep meaning or anything that like hits me to my core, right? But I appreciate it. It's definitely nice to look at, especially this one, because I was born in Germany, so the breaking of the wall thing is actually pretty cool to me. East and West Germany, right?
By the time the Berlin Wall fell in 1989, the debate seemed settled. The Soviet Union wasn't defeated by bombs or invasions. It was defeated by empty shelves, broken incentives, and an economy that could no longer keep up. A system designed to eliminate inequality.
See this? See these shelves? This is what the shelves are going to look like under Mom Donnie's government-run grocery stores.
Equality had produced new elites, party bosses, bureaucrats, and insiders, while ordinary citizens waited in line for bread. A system built to transcend market chaos collapsed under the weight of its own rigid planning. And when the numbers finally came in, they told a blunt story. Western economies were simply more productive, more innovative, and more adaptable. But capitalism's...
That's because they encourage people to be productive, innovative, and adaptable.
victory lap didn't last long. Because while the Cold War ended, the economic...
It's crazy how that works, dude. Give a man to fish versus teach a man to fish. Like, that's... You want more fish? Have more people fishing. That's how you get that. It's crazy how they think one guy can feed the entire village worth of fish. Like, this is insane.
Contradictions didn't. By the 1990s and 2000s, capitalism evolved again, this time into something no 19th century theorist could have predicted. Finance exploded, global supply chains stretched across continents, and credit flowed like water. Inequality soared again, this time on a scale reminiscent of the Gilded Age. Corporations became transnational powers, and entire economies became dependent on debt, speculation, and asset bubbles. The 2008 financial crisis hit like a déjà vu.
Yeah.
A reminder that capitalism's instability never really disappeared.
I want to remind everybody that Barack Obama was, I believe he was president in 2008, right? Yeah, he was president in 2008. I mean, 2008 was like the first one that he won, and the economy collapsed, which is funny.
It just came back wearing new clothes. Meanwhile, socialism reemerged, not in the old Soviet form, but as something softer, more nostalgic. Calls for wealth taxes, nationalized health care, free education, stronger unions, and economic leveling returned in many countries. Younger generations, crushed by housing costs and stagnant wages, began to question whether capitalism still worked for anyone but the wealthy. The debate was reborn, but there was a twist. This time, almost nobody wanted pure capitalism or pure socialism, because history had made the trade-offs painfully clear. Look at modern Scandinavia, often mislabeled as socialist. These countries have free markets, private enterprise, and global corporations, but they also have high taxes, strong social protections, and powerful unions. It's capitalism with guardrails, a mixed economy engineered to dampen inequality while preserving innovation. Now look.
I have an idea. Get rid of W-2s altogether. That whole form of payment, get rid of that shit. Okay? Put everyone in the United States. It doesn't matter what they do. It does not matter to me at all, right? You want to be a construction worker? Fine. You want to flip burgers at McDonald's? Fine. Everybody's on a 1099. What that will do is that will force everybody to pay their own fucking taxes at the end of the year, and it won't be automatically taken out of their check. Which means people will actually know how much money they are paying in taxes every year, and they will change the fucking tax code and stop taxing people to oblivion. The reason that these people can't afford to do shit, yes, their minimum wage either should go up or prices in these inflated fucking Democrat cities like New York, which is in this picture here, needs to go down. Obviously, those need to go down. The only reason, for the most part, that they're up so high is because of the tax regulations in these cities. If you get rid of those, particularly the income and property taxes, your price of everything is going to drop pretty drastically. Okay? Just flat out. And the only way for people to know how much they're paying in taxes is to actually pay attention to it. But when you have people on a W-2, they just get paid and they don't worry about paying taxes. And then they get their $600 tax return at the end of the year. They have no idea why it's $600. They just trust that that's the amount that it's supposed to be. Whereas on a 1099, you're allowed to use deductions. And the 30-ish% that you're supposed to be paying out of your income toward taxes at the end of the year, you can take deductions, and then your taxable income is less because of the deductions, meaning you don't owe as much in taxes. And if you do it right, that 30% of your income, let's say you make $100,000, right? You're supposed to pay $30,000 of that in taxes, give or take, depending on where you live and whether or not there's city taxes. Give or take, about 30% of that goes to taxes, right? After deductions, you'll be doing good to put 10% of that at taxes, right? Which means not only did you make $100,000 at the end of the, not only did you make $100,000, but you gave yourself, because you were saving the 30 just in case, you gave yourself a $20,000 bonus at the end of the year because you took those deductions and you were actually responsible with your financial independence, right? The reason that people fail in capitalist economies is because they don't want to help themselves. It's tragic but true.
Look at the United States, a capitalist powerhouse with tremendous invention, financial depth, and global influence, but also staggering wealth gaps, decaying infrastructure, unaffordable health care, and a shrinking middle class. Look at China, the most fascinating case of all, the world's largest authoritarian capitalist economy. Beijing calls it socialism with Chinese characteristics, but what it really resembles is state-directed capitalism, private firms driving growth, government controlling strategic sectors, markets allowed to flourish only when they serve national priorities. And yet, even China faces the same contradictions: debt-driven growth, housing bubbles, demographic decline, slowing productivity. When you step back, the truth is almost embarrassing in its simplicity. Every major economy today is a hybrid, a blend of markets and state power, incentives and protections, freedom and control. Not because ideologies failed, but because reality forced compromise.
Nietzsche famously said of his own books, I write...
Oh, hey, Jordan
in a
Peterson, that
single
guy right there,
sentence
yeah.
What it takes other men
No,
a book
man.
to write. That it wasn't...
But normally I don't include, because I'm going to eventually put this on YouTube probably as a Sestill Reacts. Definitely go to my YouTube page, youtube.com/Sestill_G2D. Definitely do that. Definitely subscribe. Definitely hit the like button on all of my videos, because nobody likes that stuff. Anyway, normally I cut the ads out of the videos just because I don't, but I think I'm going to leave this one in because I've actually been referencing Dr. Jordan Peterson a lot. And this thing on his tie here is actually the background on my phone because it's an image that he made that's impossible for the brain to process, and I love staring at it, right? So anyway, I normally cut it out, but I'm going to leave this ad in here, actually.
When systems met real human behavior, ambition, greed, fear, laziness, creativity, neither theory held up cleanly. And that's the uncomfortable lesson. Economic systems don't shape people nearly as much as people shape economic systems. Human nature doesn't disappear under socialism or capitalism. It just expresses itself differently. Under pure capitalism, greed becomes innovation until it becomes exploitation. Under pure socialism, equality becomes unity until it becomes repression. In markets, power concentrates through wealth. In planned economies, power concentrates through politics. Different systems, same human tendencies, different propaganda, same flaws. The real question isn't which system is better, it's which system has the best mechanisms to restrain power, correct mistakes, and reward useful behavior. And history's answer is clear. The system that adapts wins. Capitalism survived because it could reinvent itself. From laissez-faire to the New Deal, to globalized finance to tech capitalism, socialism collapsed where it refused to evolve. The Soviet Union, Maoist China, North Korea, but socialism thrived where it merged with markets.
By the way, the current China is just a continuation of Mao's China. It just doesn't look like that. They rebranded it as a capitalist economy under the socialist, communist fucking things. Just so you know. Mao Zedong, I'm pretty sure, was one of the guys that mentored Kim Jong-un.
Scandinavia, post-1978 China.
Oh, no, that's not his name. Fucking, I'm stupid. That's the North Korea guy. Xi Jinping, my bad.
Its authoritarian edge, and parts of Western Europe. Ideology didn't decide the winners. Adaptation did. To understand why, you don't need a PhD in economics. You just need to see what each system prioritizes. Capitalism prioritizes incentives. When it works well, it unleashes creativity, risk-taking, and productivity. People build, innovate, experiment, because there's something in it for them. But the downside is inequality, instability, and cycles that punish the vulnerable. Socialism prioritizes equality. When it works well, it reduces poverty, expands access, and ensures basic dignity. But without incentives, productivity stagnates.
Yep.
Without markets, information collapses. And without open institutions, corruption festers in silence. Both systems have strengths, both have failures, and both have historical scars. The modern world, the world you and I live in, is built on those scars. Every safety net, every regulation, every market rule, every welfare program, every financial instrument carries the DNA of this century-long battle. The mixed economies we live in today aren't proof that one system won. They're proof that neither system could survive alone. But here's the twist most people miss. The debate is shifting again. Because the challenges of the 21st century, AI disruption, demographic collapse, climate risk, energy transitions, global debt, don't care about ideology. They expose weaknesses in both systems. Market capitalism struggles with long-term planning and social cohesion. Socialist planning struggles with flexibility and innovation. And the countries that will thrive in the next century will be those that combine the two most effectively: the creativity of markets with the resilience of public investment, private innovation with public direction, freedom with stability. If the last century taught us anything, it's this: no system works without guardrails, no economy survives without incentives, and no society thrives when wealth or power becomes too concentrated, whether in billionaires or bureaucrats. History didn't choose capitalism or socialism. History chose whatever prevented collapse, and every generation has to renegotiate that balance. because the debate was never really about capitalism versus socialism. It was about who controls the levers inside each system: the capital, the state, the banks, the unions, the corporations, the party, the regulators. The real fight is always over the same thing: power. And power, as history shows again and again, doesn't disappear. It just changes hands.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said in the beginning of first of all, absolutely it's power. But like I said in the beginning of this, I've read a book called The Richest Man in Babylon. And one of the lessons you learn from the King of Babylon in that book is that one may not take from a man what he has rightfully earned. Neither may one with justice punish a man for earning money simply because he knows how. Okay? His desire was that Babylon be the richest city in the world. And for that to happen, his citizens, the citizens of Babylon, must be the richest people of their time. So what he came up with was financial classes that taught people who wanted to learn how to earn money. And Arcad, the richest man in Babylon, was the guy that he brought in initially to teach this class. And the first thing he was talking about was the 7 laws of gold. I have told you, I have seen the working out of the first law of gold for myself, okay? That law is gold cometh gladly and in increasing quantities to any man who will set aside not less than 1/10 of his earnings to provide an estate for himself and for his family. Okay? So as long as you can save 10% of your earnings, and I swear to God, everybody can, I don't want to hear your excuses. I don't care at all. I don't care. I don't have 10% to save. Yes, you do. Flat out. And if you don't, then you need to find another job or decrease your expenses. Because if you cannot live on 90% of your income, you are the problem. It is not your income. Fucking guarantee it. But if you start to save 10% of your income, and you start amassing a little, you do that for a while, maybe six months, maybe a year, something like that, and you have a little bit of a nest egg built up, you will actually notice more opportunities in your life to earn more money. Like, it's crazy how, trust me, it's fucking wild how it works, okay? You'll be working at McDonald's, and nobody ever comes up to you with any kind of business opportunities. Nobody ever comes up to you and says, hey, you know what? You'd make a great worker over here making like triple what you're making right now, okay? But for whatever reason, when you have that nest egg, those opportunities show up in your life, okay? Follow me on Kick. Follow me on X at @real_Sestill. I make based opinions, and I'm fun to talk to as far as I'm concerned anyway. I mean, nobody else really talks to me. I don't know, subscribe on YouTube, subscribe on Rumble. I'm everywhere that videos are made. I will see you guys next week. Bye.